One single thought can destroy your entire day, and most people never even realize it is happening. It does not arrive looking dangerous. It does not announce itself as an enemy. It enters quietly, often disguised as caution, realism, memory, or concern. It may sound reasonable. It may even sound wise. But once it is accepted, it begins its work. Your mood shifts. Your body changes. Your energy drops. Your certainty weakens. Your focus breaks. And before you fully understand what has taken place, you are no longer directing your mind. You are reacting to it. That is how most people live, not as masters of thought, but as servants to thought, not as rulers of their own inner world, but as prisoners of whatever feeling arrives first. They are pushed by fear, pulled by doubt, weakened by memory, and distracted by imagination. Then they call this condition life, when in truth it is simply a lack of mental command. This must be understood clearly. The mind is the one kingdom over which you may rule absolutely, and yet it is the one kingdom most people neglect. They discipline their schedule, but not their thoughts. They monitor their finances, but not their emotions. They judge the actions of others, but never examine the silent conversations taking place within themselves. They permit fear to speak with authority. They allow doubt to remain without challenge. They let one thought become 10, and 10 become a mood, and that mood becomes the atmosphere of the entire day. You have done this. You know exactly what I mean. You wake with energy. Your mind feels clear. You intend to move forward. There is no heaviness yet, no confusion, no hesitation. Then one thought enters. Perhaps it is a memory of something you said yesterday. Perhaps it is a doubt concerning your ability. Perhaps it is a fear about what may happen tomorrow. Perhaps it is the old familiar whisper, "What if you fail?" That thought enters quietly, but once you accept it, it begins to spread. Within minutes, your confidence is no longer where it was. Your attention fragments. Your decision-making weakens. You begin to feel smaller, more uncertain, more cautious. Nothing in the outer world has changed, yet your entire inner condition has been altered, all from one thought. That is not a small matter. That is power. And if a thought has the power to lower your energy, break your focus, weaken your confidence, and shape your behavior, then the ability to govern thought is not a luxury. It is one of the most important forms of power you will ever develop. Most people never do. They never notice the exact moment at which they surrendered control. They simply feel the change and assume it is reality. They do not stop to say, "What caused this?" They do not ask, "Is this thought even true?" They do not examine the first spark before it becomes a fire. They simply accept it, and that is where the trouble begins. A thought accepted without examination becomes a feeling. A feeling repeated often enough becomes a pattern. A pattern becomes a habit. A habit becomes part of your character. And character, whether strong or weak, eventually expresses itself in results. This is why so much of life is shaped not by one great event, but by small, repeated acts of inner surrender. Men often imagine that downfall comes dramatically, but more often it comes quietly. It comes through tolerated doubt, rehearsed fear, unchallenged thoughts, and habits of mind so familiar that they are mistaken for identity. You have likely felt this most clearly at night. You lie in bed, the body tired, but the mind suddenly alive. It begins replaying every mistake, every embarrassment, every delayed decision, every opportunity missed, every conversation you wish had gone differently. One memory leads to another. One regret calls forth a second regret. The mind builds momentum. It gathers accusation. It begins to present a case against you. In those moments, the thoughts feel compelling, and because they feel compelling, you begin to treat them as truth. Yet often they are not truth at all. They are repetition. They are a familiar pathway being traveled again. They are old material energized by present attention. Or perhaps your battle shows itself around other people. You speak in a meeting, in a conversation, at a gathering, and then immediately the mind attacks. That sounded foolish. You said too much. They saw weakness in you. You should have stayed quiet. Suddenly your posture changes. Your voice tightens. You become aware of yourself in the worst possible way. You stop expressing and begin monitoring. You stop participating and begin retreating. Why? Because a thought arrived, and without trial, without evidence, without challenge, you gave it command. This is why the average person is so easily ruled by mood. He does not understand the source of the mood. He thinks the mood arrived by chance, when in fact it was constructed by thought. He believes he feels bad because life is difficult, when often he feels bad because a thought was left ungoverned. He believes he is anxious because circumstances are uncertain, when often he is anxious because his mind is rehearsing uncertainty without interruption. He blames the outside world for an inner process he has not yet learned to command. Listen carefully. You are not your thoughts. You are the one who observes them. That distinction is the beginning of power. The fact that a thought appears in your mind does not mean it deserves belief. The fact that a fear feels intense does not mean it is true. The fact that doubt speaks quickly does not make doubt wise. Yet millions live as though every thought that appears must be honored, obeyed, and felt. They do not distinguish between appearance and authority. They do not know that thought can be inspected before it is accepted. And because they do not know this, they become servants to their own mental noise. Before you can master the problem, you must understand why the mind behaves this way. The mind is not naturally neutral. It is conditioned to notice what seems threatening. This was once useful. In earlier times, danger had to be detected quickly. The one who ignored signs of threat did not survive long enough to repeat his mistakes. Therefore, the mind became alert, vigilant, reactive, and highly sensitive to anything that might signal loss, harm, embarrassment, exclusion, pain, or danger. That conditioning still lives in you. But now the threats are rarely physical. They are psychological. They are social. They are financial. They are imagined. They are anticipated. They are remembered. They are sometimes nothing more than thoughts. And yet the mind reacts as though a predator had stepped into the room. It magnifies the risk. It accelerates the feeling. It narrows your vision. It prepares you for danger, even when danger is not present. This is why the mind, left undisciplined, tends to overvalue negative thought. It grants fear too much attention. It rehearses what may go wrong. It remembers criticism more vividly than praise. It holds on to humiliation longer than success. It is drawn to the painful, the uncertain, the unfinished, and the threatening. This does not make you broken. It makes you untrained, and that is good news, because what is untrained can be trained. What is conditioned can be reconditioned. What is habitual can be replaced. Within you there are always two forces competing for command. One is fear. The other is control. Fear is fast, emotional, urgent, and persuasive. It does not need evidence. It does not wait for reason. It speaks immediately and with force. Control is different. Control is calm. It is deliberate. It pauses before concluding. It questions before obeying. Fear says something is wrong. Control asks, is that true? Fear says this will end badly. Control asks, based on what? Fear predicts. Control evaluates. Fear contracts. Control steadies. Fear reacts. Control directs. Whichever of these forces you feed becomes stronger. That is law. If you feed fear with attention, imagination, and belief, fear grows. If you feed doubt with repetition, doubt grows. If you repeatedly surrender to hesitation, hesitation becomes your habit. But if you interrupt fear, question it, and replace it with directed thought, control grows stronger. If you repeatedly return to command, command becomes easier. If you repeatedly choose certainty over spiral, your mental state begins to change. This is not theory, it is practice. It is repetition. It is law expressed through habit. Now here's the part that matters most. A thought has no lasting power until you accept it. It may enter your mind without permission, but it cannot remain there as ruler without your cooperation. Most people never realize this. They think the battle is lost the instant the thought appears. It is not. The first thought is not the true point of power. The true point of power is what happens next. Do you agree with it? Do you rehearse it? Do you let the body collapse beneath it? Do you begin building a future around it? Or do you stop, observe, challenge, and redirect? That moment is everything. You may not control the first thought, but you do control the second. And the second thought often decides the day. So let us come now to the practical method. Not vague encouragement, not just think positive, not empty self-help language, a real method, simple enough to use quickly, strong enough to interrupt a downward spiral, repeatable enough to become a habit. I call it the method of mental dominion. The first step is this: isolate the thought. When the negative thought appears, do not panic. Do not identify with it. Do not say, I am failing, or I am weak, or I am anxious, as though the thought were your identity. Instead say, I am noticing a thought of failure, or I am observing a thought that says this will go badly. This may seem like a small shift, but it is a profound one. In that moment, you move from being inside the thought to looking at it. You create distance. You reclaim the position of observer. That is power. Because what you can observe, you can evaluate. And what you can evaluate, you need not obey. Most people never separate themselves from their thoughts. They merge with them instantly. A thought appears and they become it. They feel it, speak from it, act from it, and suffer under it before ever questioning whether it deserved authority. Do not do this. Train yourself to name the thought as a thought. Do not call it truth before it has been tested. Call it what it is, a mental event. The second step is this: command your body. Fear is not only mental, it is physical. When fear enters, the body changes immediately. The breath becomes shallow, the posture weakens, the chest contracts, the shoulders fall, the face tightens, the voice loses force. If you leave the body in that condition, the body will continue reporting danger back to the mind, and the cycle will intensify. So you must interrupt it physically. Stand up if you are seated. Straighten your posture. Lift the chest. Let the neck lengthen. Draw in a deep breath through the nose. If you can, take a second, smaller inhale at the top, then release it slowly through the mouth. Do that once with intention, then again if needed. This is not random, this is command. You are telling your system, I am not surrendering to this state. I am returning to order. This matters more than many realize. You cannot repeatedly think thoughts of strength while rehearsing a posture of defeat. The body must support the command you are attempting to establish. A weak posture feeds a weak state. A strong posture assists a strong state. The disciplined person learns to change physical bearing quickly under pressure, not for appearance, but for control. The third step is this: challenge the thought. Fear thrives when unexamined. It hates evidence. It resists clarity. It survives by moving fast and sounding final. Therefore, once you have isolated the thought and steadied the body, ask a directed question. Do not ask a vague question like, "Why am I like this?" That only deepens confusion. Ask questions that restore command. Ask, "What evidence proves this thought is true?" Ask, "What is actually happening right now?" Ask, "What is one thing I can do in the next 5 minutes?" Ask, "Will this matter in the same way 1 year from now?" Questions like these interrupt exaggeration. They pull the mind out of catastrophe and back into fact. They force fear to submit to examination. Suppose the thought says, "I have ruined everything." Challenge it. Everything? Really? What specifically has been ruined? Suppose the thought says, "They all think less of me." Challenge it. How do you know? What evidence supports that? Suppose the thought says, "I can't handle this." Challenge it. Have you handled difficult things before? What action is available now? In this way, you move from being pushed by feeling to being guided by reason. The fourth step is this: replace the thought. You cannot leave the mind empty. If you interrupt the negative thought and provide no better direction, the old thought will often return. So you must insert something stronger, something chosen, something constructive. For this purpose, you need what I call a memory of power. A memory of power is a specific memory from your life associated with certainty, confidence, courage, peace, capability, or personal strength. It is not a vague idea like, "I should be positive." It is a real moment, a moment when you were clear, a moment when you handled something well, a moment when you knew without apology who you were, a moment when you felt strong, respected, calm, effective, or deeply steady. Choose this memory in advance. Do not wait for crisis to begin searching. Prepare it now. Know what it is. Know what it looks like. Know how you stood in that moment. Know how your breathing felt. Know what expression was on your face. Know the emotional texture of that memory. Because once fear begins, you must be able to bring that memory forward quickly. When the moment comes, do not merely think about the memory. Step into it. Relive it. See the room. Hear the sounds. Recall the certainty. Let the body remember how it felt to be in command. Your mind responds to vivid inner experience. Use that fact in your favor. The fifth step is this: fix the feeling. This is the step most people neglect. They think a better thought, but they do not allow the emotional state to change. They say the words, but they do not inhabit them, and so the old feeling remains stronger than the new direction. Do not make that mistake. When you bring forward the memory of power, feel it. Feel the steadiness. Feel the certainty. Feel the confidence returning. Feel the nervous system settling. Let the new state become physical, not merely verbal. Emotion locks in direction. Fear knows this, which is why fear always tries to attach itself to vivid feeling. You must do the same with control. Let the body experience the shift. Let the shoulders settle. Let the breath deepen. Let the face soften. Let the chest open. Let the new feeling spread. When this happens, the original thought begins to lose force. It is no longer the only emotional atmosphere in the room. Now understand, this method is not merely for stopping a bad thought in one moment. It is for retraining the mind. Every time you do this, you weaken an old pathway and strengthen a new one. Every time you interrupt a spiral, you teach the mind that fear is no longer sovereign. Every time you return to command, you make command easier next time. This is how habits change, not through one heroic effort, through repeated, disciplined interruption. A man becomes what he repeatedly permits. If he repeatedly permits fear to dominate, fear becomes familiar and quick. If he repeatedly interrupts fear and returns to command, command becomes familiar and quick. With enough repetition, what once felt automatic begins to weaken. What once required great effort begins to feel natural. This is how identity changes, not by declaration alone, but by repeated acts of self-government. Most people fail here because they do not practice in small moments. They wait for some great crisis and then demand mastery from a mind they have never trained. Do not do that. Practice when the stakes are low. Practice when irritation appears. Practice when self-criticism begins. Practice when a small fear speaks. Practice when the mind starts replaying an old mistake. Build a habit in ordinary moments so that extraordinary moments do not catch you unprepared. Let us make this even more practical. Suppose you send a message and do not receive an immediate response. The mind begins, they are upset. I said something wrong. I'm being ignored. Catch it. Name it. I am noticing a thought of rejection. Straighten the body. Breathe. Ask, what facts do I actually have? Likely very few. Replace the spiral with a memory of power, perhaps a moment when you were clear, grounded, and valued. Feel that. Return to command. The situation may not be resolved yet, but you are no longer being ruled by imagination. Suppose you make a mistake at work. The mind says, this proves I am not capable. Catch it. I am observing a thought of inadequacy. Stand tall. Breathe. Ask, does one mistake define my ability? Replace with a memory of competence. Feel the return of steadiness. Then ask, what is the next corrective action? Notice the difference. You move from collapse to command, from self-attack to solution. Suppose you walk into a room and immediately feel inferior. The mind says, you do not belong here. Catch it. A thought of inferiority has appeared. Change your bearing. Breathe. Ask, what evidence supports this? Replace it with a memory of strength, of belonging, of clear expression. Feel it. Then continue. Again, the room has not changed, but you have, and that changes everything. This is freedom, not freedom from difficult thoughts, but freedom from blind obedience to them. The strongest people are not those who never feel fear. They are those who refuse to let fear make every decision. They are those who know how to notice, interrupt, and redirect. They have trained themselves to return to command more quickly than the average person. That is why they appear calmer. That is why they recover faster. That is why they remain effective under pressure. They are not necessarily free from inner disturbance. They are skilled at governing it. You must become skilled at the same thing. Because your life follows your dominant thoughts more than most people are willing to admit, your actions follow what you repeatedly tell yourself. Your consistency follows your emotional state. Your relationships are affected by the thoughts you bring into them. Your ambition rises or falls according to the atmosphere of your own mind. If your mind is governed by fear, your life will bear the marks of fear. If your mind is governed by command, your life will increasingly bear the marks of command. You do not need a perfect mind. You need a trained one. You do not need to eliminate every negative thought forever. You need to stop bowing to them the instant they appear. That is a very different goal, and it is attainable. So remember this: the first thought is not the point of defeat. The moment after the first thought is the point of power. That is where your future is decided. That is where your day bends upward or downward. That is where you either reinforce weakness or practice mastery. The average person loses that moment because he does not notice it. You must notice it. You must become a watcher of your own mind. You must hear the first whisper of fear and say, "No, not this time. I see you." Then command the body. Question the thought. Replace it. Feel the new state. Repeat. Do this often enough and something remarkable begins to happen. Thoughts that once felt overwhelming begin to look smaller. Moods that once lasted all day begin to pass more quickly. Spirals that once consumed you begin to break earlier. Confidence returns, not as a random gift, but as a practiced state. You begin to trust yourself because you have seen again and again that you can return to command. That trust is priceless, because the man who trusts that he can regain command fears his own mind far less than the man who feels helpless before it. And when you no longer fear your own mind in the same way, you become more courageous in life. You speak more clearly. You decide more firmly. You recover more quickly. You persist more effectively. You become less dependent on ideal circumstances because you have built inner structure. This is why mastery of thought is so important. It does not merely improve mood, it improves action. It improves endurance. It improves clarity. It improves character. And character, shaped by repeated acts of self-command, influences every result that follows. So begin now, not tomorrow, not after the next setback. Now, choose your memory of power today. Rehearse the language by which you will name destructive thoughts. Practice the bodily command of posture and breath. Prepare the questions that restore reason. Build a habit before the next attack of fear begins. And when the next negative thought appears, as it surely will, do not follow it blindly. Do not surrender the day to it. Stop. Notice it. Separate from it. Command your body. Challenge its claim. Replace it with power. Fix the feeling. Return to yourself. Because the person who controls the mind controls more than feeling. He controls action. He controls response. He controls persistence. He controls the use of energy. He controls the direction of life. And the person who does not control the mind is too easily controlled by everything else. Remember the sequence. Isolate the thought. Command the body. Challenge with reason. Replace with a memory of power. Fix the feeling. Practice in small moments so it is available in great ones. Use it early, not late. Use it until it becomes familiar. Use it until your mind recognizes that it is no longer dealing with a passive owner, but with a ruler. For in the end, the one who governs thought governs action. The one who governs action shapes habit. The one who shapes habit forms character. And the one who forms character determines destiny. Your greatest victory will not be over another person. It will not be over luck or circumstance or criticism or delay. Your greatest victory will be over the old tendency to believe and obey every fear that enters your mind. Win that victory, and much else becomes possible. Lose it, and no outward success will ever feel secure for long. So reclaim your authority. The kingdom is already yours. What remains is to rule it.